We're currently in a brief expected handover period between our satellites and will regain communications here shortly. Everything's still proceeding nominally as we wait for confirmation that Cygnus has departed the approach ellipsoid. Following crossing the approach ellipsoid, Cygnus will have several more milestones before it can be grappled by the Canadarm2. The next will be a hold point at 250 meters while teams on the ground run checks on the vehicle and space station to make sure both are ready for the upcoming capture procedures. Following this, Cygnus will then cross the keep-out sphere, which is a 200-meter invisible line around the space station. Then, when Cygnus is 30 meters away from the station, it will reach another hold point where teams at the Northrop Grumman Mission Operations Center will check systems once more. Once everything is determined to be nominal, Northrop Grumman will give their go and Cygnus will depart the 30-meter hold point. After departing the 30-meter hold point, Cygnus will move to approximately 10 to 12 meters from the station, which will be its capture point today, at which time the Canadarm2 will reach out to grapple the spacecraft. After its capture this morning, the controls of Cygnus will be turned over to teams on the ground, to the robotics controller, who will use the Canadarm2 to reposition the Cygnus craft and berth it to the Unity module of the space station. The space station is currently flying 261 statute miles across the Bay of Bengal. In this graphic, you can see the International Space Station as well as the Cygnus cargo vehicle nearly on top of each other as they approach one another today. Cygnus recently passed the approach ellipsoid, which is that 1 kilometer line or gate around the space station. The next milestone we'll look towards will be when Cygnus reaches a 250-meter hold point, where teams on the ground will run checks on the vehicle and space station to make sure both are ready for the upcoming capture procedures. Cygnus set to reach the 250-meter hold point arrival in about 20 minutes from now. You're looking at a live view of Cygnus from the International Space Station. This morning, Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Soichi Noguchi will be the prime robotics controller during today's capture of Cygnus. He'll be poised in the cupola of the space station to capture Cygnus with the Canadarm2, and following capture, he'll hand over controls to teams on the ground. Noguchi will be backed up by NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins. Each Cygnus spacecraft is named after an individual who has made significant contributions to human spaceflight. Today's vehicle is named after Katherine Johnson, whose mathematic computing contributed to calculations for the flight path of America's first crewed space missions and moon landings. Katherine Johnson died on February 24, 2020 at the age of 101. Following a career of breaking barriers and helping others reach space, Katherine Johnson's namesake now orbiting the Earth as it makes its way to the International Space Station. It's taken Cygnus about 2 days to get to the point you see it at today. Cygnus launched at 11:36 a.m. Central Time, 12:36 a.m. Eastern Time from NASA Wallops, carrying over 4 tons of cargo aboard it. You can see Cygnus here as it lifted off on an Antares rocket from Wallops, Virginia. Following a first stage burn of approximately 3 minutes and 18 seconds, Cygnus was switched over to its Stage 2 motor, Cygnus eventually making an 8-minute 49-second journey into orbit. Solar arrays then unfurled and began collecting power, which took about 30 minutes, and Cygnus has been continuing its journey to the space station ever since.
All systems nominal.
Everything's still moving nominally as we look for capture today at 3:40 a.m. Central Time.
Good core pressures. Engines remain steady. Attitude nominal. Max Q.
Cygnus is packed with over 4 tons of cargo as it approaches the International Space Station this morning. Some of that cargo includes crew supplies, science investigations, spacewalk equipment, vehicle hardware, computer resources, and Russian hardware. You can see here a breakdown of the pounds of cargo aboard Cygnus today. There is 2,054 pounds of crew supplies, 2,484 pounds of science investigations, 52 pounds of spacewalking equipment, 3,115 pounds of vehicle hardware, 2 pounds of computer resources, and 52 pounds of Russian hardware. Also aboard Cygnus is some fresh food for the crew members, including cherry tomatoes, lemons, onions, apples, navel oranges, and garlic. We're just about 10 minutes away from the point. Cygnus will reach the 250-meter hold point. The station is currently flying 266 statute miles as it approaches the western coast of Australia. We're now about 8 minutes away from the point. Cygnus will reach the 250-meter hold point. If you have questions for us this morning, you can submit them using the hashtag AskNASA, and we'll be answering them live on air. Cygnus is carrying over 4 tons of cargo today, some of which is science experiments. One of those science experiments is using worms to learn about muscle loss. These tiny worms could help us determine the cause of muscle weakening that astronauts experience in microgravity. Researchers with the Micro 16 study are going to test whether decreased expression of muscle proteins is associated with this decreased strength. Results of this experiment may provide a better understanding of the links between gene expression and muscle strength, support the development of countermeasures to help maintain crew member health, and support new therapies to combat the effects of age-related muscle loss on Earth. We're now 5 minutes out from Cygnus reaching the 250-meter hold point. Once it reaches this hold point, it will complete checks with the ground before eventually moving to the 200-meter keep-out sphere before continuing its journey to the International Space Station. Teams on the ground are expecting Cygnus to arrive at the 250-meter hold point in about 2 minutes.
Anton, I have a couple of questions. So, do we understand correctly that we have to activate GoPro?
Now just about 1 minute until Cygnus reaches the 250-meter hold point. The station is currently flying 271 statute miles above the Earth. It's flying off the west coast of Australia, about to cross into the Tasman Sea. As you can see from this view here, we will soon be passing through the terminator line, which is the point at which there is a orbital nightfall. The space station orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, meaning it sees a sunset and a sunrise every 45 minutes. Cygnus has now reached the 250-meter hold point.
Station Easton on 2 for Cygnus.
Yeah, go for Cygnus.
All right, Hopper, go ahead and confirm the Cygnus 250-meter hold for step 2 and 1.102.
Copy, step 2, 1.102.
Now that Cygnus has reached the 200...
On 2 for Cygnus, we do see the Cygnus mode as hold. The command panel LED status is as expected. Prior range is showing 251, and block Bravo we have in both monitors. Lights in the corridor, overlay of the vehicle matches the size. Lights in the circle, circle is touching center.
All right, great report. Thanks, Hopper.
Those words from NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins as he works with the ground team in preparation for Cygnus capture later this morning. Now that Cygnus has reached that 250-meter hold point, it will complete some checks with the ground before eventually moving to the 200-meter keep-out sphere before it continues its journey to the International Space Station for capture. As Cygnus continues to hold at the 250-meter hold point, teams on the ground are beginning a go, no-go poll to confirm that Cygnus is ready to proceed with its ascent to the International Space Station and enter the keep-out sphere. Cygnus continuing to hold at the 250-meter hold point, where it's completing some checks with the ground before eventually moving to the 200-meter keep-out sphere. Everything's still moving on track as we look towards capture later this morning at 3:40 a.m. Central Time, 4:40 a.m. Eastern Time.
And Station Houston on Space Ground 2, Cygnus and ISS are configured for approach inside the keep-out sphere. Expect approach to resume shortly and stand by for the Cygnus PCS command checkout.
And Houston Station copies all, standing by.
As you just heard, Capcom Neil Nagata relayed to the crew aboard the space station that Cygnus has now been approved to depart the 250-meter hold point and approach the 200-meter keep-out sphere.
Okay, Station Cygnus has resumed approach. You guys go for the Cygnus PCS command checkout, hold arm per step 3 in 1.102.
Station copy, step 3, 1.102, in work.
We're in a brief expected handover between satellites and will regain communications shortly.
Via step 3, hold command is armed.
Okay. And copy that. You are go for the command checkout disarm per step 4 in 1.102, 13 seconds to about a minute and a half outage.
Copy that, step 4, 1.102, in work.
If you're just tuning in with us this morning, we're providing coverage as a Cygnus cargo resupply vehicle approaches the International Space Station for capture by the Canadarm2. Cygnus has completed a series of milestones already this morning, the last being a hold point at 250 meters away from the space station. Next up, we'll look for Cygnus to reach about 30 meters away from the station, and it will reach another hold point where teams at the Northrop Grumman Mission Operations Center will check systems once more. Following this, and if everything checks out nominally, Northrop Grumman will give their go, and Cygnus will depart the 30-meter hold point. After departing the 30-meter hold point,
All right, we see the same. And so, Operator, that means the Cygnus PCS command checkout was successful. Begin monitoring approach from 250 meters per step 5 and 1.102.
Houston, copy, step 5, 1.102, and work.
So be advised, Cygnus is inside the 200-meter keep-out sphere. You now have the authority to issue an abort if no comm with MCCH and the light is outside of the corridor.
Station copies.
and that call from Capcom Neil Nagata up to the crew confirming that Cygnus is now within the keep-out sphere around the space station. The next milestone we'll look towards this morning is when Cygnus reaches 30 meters away from the station. It will reach another hold point at this time where teams at the Northrop Grumman Mission Operations Center will check systems once more. Once Northrop Grumman gives their go and Cygnus is departed the 30-meter hold point, it will reach the 10 to 12 meter